Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome again to Hands on SAP Dev with me, Q Macro. And I'm streaming live today on a beautiful summer's morning here in Manchester. I'll explain this thing on my head in a second. It's a public holiday here today. It's a long weekend. It's Easter weekend, so this is Good Friday. But both Max and I'll talk about Max in a second. Max and I thought we would do a live stream anyway because live stream, because SAP Dev. So here we are. So we're going to do an hour. I'm in my running kit, not normally here. I'm in my running kit ready to go out because Michelle wants to go out for a little run straight after this. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'm going to shoot straight off at, it'll be 9 o'clock my time. Talking of 9 o'clock my time, it's already 9 o'clock his time. Let me go to the main display here and show you a video. You should be able to see a video of good morning, Fred, good morning, Mahesh, and good afternoon, Mahesh, good evening, Mahesh, good afternoon, Mahesh, of course, yes, just gone noon, hasn't it? So welcome, Max. Good morning. How are you this morning? Wearing a cap. Yes, exactly. It's Cap Friday. Now I'm just going to check, but also folks on the stream, Fred, Mahesh, Robert. Hey, howdy, Robert, and Gregor. Gregor, I know that's you. Lupomania. Welcome, Gregor. Lupomania. I knew that was Gregor. Let me know positively as well as negatively that you can hear. Oh, you can't hear Max. Oh, okay. 1 second. Okay. That's because I did have a. Let me go to that one there. There we go. Okay. Now try. Say something now, Max.
Something rude to DJ or something casual?
Well, something rude, something pleasant. Who cares? There we go. On purpose. Hey, Fabienne. Okay, so you should be able to hear Max now. I was in the wrong. Here we go. I'll show you. Actually, I was in the wrong scene here. I was in the main scene, but I've got the interview scene, which has this extra source, which is audio via loopback, which behind the scenes is this strange loopback piece of software I need for that. Anyway, okay, so we can now hear as well as see Maxi. Thanks, Gregor. Thanks, Robert. Thanks, Fred. Wonderful. And so there we go. What a fail for a Friday morning, but it is a holiday, so I'm allowed to fail. So Max, please describe why we are having these things on our heads.
Because it's Cap Friday and there is no equivalent for Java Friday. I have no idea how to just point out that it's Java Friday, and Cap Friday is good.
I can't believe it. I can't believe. I just realised what you meant by Cap Friday. Oh my goodness! See, this is. I'm not in my normal routine. Normally, by this time, I'll have been up a few hours. I'll have been for a run and everything, all awake. But I had a bit of a lie-in this morning. So Cap Friday. Oh my goodness! Yes. Okay. Now it makes sense. What a fool! What a fool I am. Okay. So I'm just gonna also maybe make the stream chat a little bit smaller. So that we can see. There we go. I'll move that there so we can see Max's face. So the stream is not in the stream chat is not his face. There we go. And click that back again. So let me tell you about Max if you don't already know. Max joined us last week. Here's Max's people profile. Let me post that to the chat. If you're not following Max, follow him now. Tell us a bit about your. It's a very strange username. Inside. What's that all about, Max?
There's no proper reason for my username. Was my pre-SAP time when I wasn't an SAP employee, and I had to choose a username. And back in the days, I had a Windows laptop, and there was kind of a stick in front of the laptop with inside with one eye. So I randomly just have chosen that one because, there wasn't a real username for me. And because the usual inside was taken, I just added an eye in the beginning to keep it unique. What a wonderful story, isn't it?
Well, it's a story. That's next to truth, so that's all that matters. Excellent. Yes, one day I'll tell you about the reason why I chose 43 for my SAP mentor number. It's just such a similar poor story, poor reason. But anyway, so there's there's Max. And we had Max on last week, and it was a first look at CAP with Java. So this is what we covered last week on Friday. So we looked at CAP with Java, and Max took us through just the first sort of first bits and pieces, the first foray into doing some Java with CAP using Web IDE. So this stream, Max is going to take us a little bit further, and we'll dig in a little bit more to that stuff. Max is going to tell us about that shortly. So there is that. Quick shout out to Robert Tables. Here's at the start of each stream. I'd like to sort of point out various folks that I follow also on Twitch. And Robert Tables, the URL I'll paste here. Oops. The URL I'll paste here. A great live stream, and this is his real names are David, obviously Robert Tables, Bobby Tables, etc. And he does all sorts of DevOps and containerization stuff with AWS, but also some hardware bits and pieces, which is really, really cool. So I enjoy watching David on stream, or Robert Tables, as the name he goes by. His next stream is just over a day's time, as you can see from this nice little widget here. I don't have one of these widgets on my Twitch thing. Maybe I should have one. But anyway, yes, follow Robert Tables. Talking of following, if you're not already following, Lucia Subatin, one of our colleagues, she's based over in Toronto. Yes, Toronto. And she's just been at Google Next 2019, an awesome event. And she does some really, really cool things in the crossover between SAP Dev or SAP Tech and Google Tech. And she just published a post. When was it? On the 13th, that Max called out. Actually, I've not seen this one. I'm going to put the post here, but it is absolutely awesome. And if you'd like to see more on hands-on SAP Dev relating to this sort of stuff, I personally would like to see this sort of stuff. Let me know, and we'll see if we can, in the nicest possible way, bully or persuade Lucia to come and join us on stream. So that's Lucia, and that's his really cool post about Google Cloud Run, which is basically sort of a managed serverless environment, which is really nice. And just before I forget, I'm going to put in here a link to the hands-on SAP Dev episode feedback. So please, after this is finished, just give us a feedback about this particular episode and let us know how we're doing. One more thing, on Wednesday, I'm just going to have some coffee in my, I hope you're watching there, in my SAP Coffee Corner mug. I don't normally have coffee before a run, so I'm just wondering what's going to happen. But anyway, what we did on Wednesday was hack around with some Vim stuff and the CDS LSP package, CDS Language Server Protocol package, which is inside the Visual Studio Code extension that SAP offers on tools.anna.onman.com, and I unpacked that, and the result of which, I wanted to show you very briefly. Where's my thing here? Let's just do that so we can see Max as well. If I now go into, in fact, let's just look what we got here. Yes, okay, it's this one here. If we go into our data model.cds from a bookshop sample, let's just save that there, kill that there, into the sample there. We now have not only nice syntax highlighting, and I would say, this is fighting talk, I would say that this syntax highlighting is slightly better than the syntax highlighting in VS Code because of the fact that the annotations here are a nice sort of bright green color. Rather than sort of the commenty style color. In fact, talking comments, it will also do comments. Here's some comments. But anyway, as you just saw, then we've also got now live as you type, because it's done through this asynchronous linting engine, connecting back to the language server via LSP. It's got some really nice error handling here, so I can jump through the errors and go back again. And so on. We see all the different errors here, just a little bit like the problems tab in VS Code. Let me just undo that again. It will also do things like if I go to, for example, books, I can do a find references which will then open up a little preview window. I can jump to cat service to look at the reference there. There's the reference. In fact, I can use my crosshairs in Vim, go back again. And of course, I can also say, well, if I go to books here or further down, where's the definition of that? Go to definition. It goes just jump straight up to here. So if you're a Vim user, give me a shout, and I would love to share this with you. I'm probably going to try and put this on GitHub as an open source project. There's a number of small hoops we have to jump through before we do that for various legal reasons. But I would love to do this. So if you want to sort of get involved, then let me know. Okay, so that's that. That's all I needed to show, really, or wanted to show. Let me just get rid of that, And I'm now going to make Max full screen. And, oh, thanks, Robert. Nice mug. Is that my face? Nice mug? Mug is a slang for face in British English, anyway. I don't know. And but maybe you're talking about this. I don't know. Yes. So thanks to Jacob and Simon, and also now Martin Fisher is another host on SAP Coffee Corner. So welcome, Martin, to the Coffee Corner radio family. So I'm going to make Max full screen. Oh my goodness, that's huge. So the stage is yours. Tell us what we did last week and what we're going to cover this week, and then you can share your screen whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen immediately, that you don't have to be concerned with my face.
Concerned with your face.
Ooh, that's
I still
too
can't
low.
believe that I didn't get the cap day. Oh, what a fool.
Okay, what have we done last week? I think it's a good idea to just dive into some CDS files we have. So there's a data model, the classical. There's something with the LSP still. It's loading in the meantime. Yeah. I hope. Yep. So we have some books, we have some authors, we have some orders, and I have some sample files which we deployed last week directly into the HANA. And by the way, if interrupt me at any time, either viewers or UDJ, because I always omit some things which are not really obvious, or I take something for granted. So what do we do too? We have a service CDS, just providing or provisioning the entities in a straightforward way without anything around. So books on Bookshop, orders, and orders. What else do we have? We created a Java class with some hooks. I hope it's still the same, because I played a little bit around and tried to roll it back to the initial state, or where we've stopped. Why don't we deploy, or just another moment. Let's check if my Cloud Foundry space is still configured.
Oh yeah, always good to check.
Yeah, it's still there. So that's an internal one. I'm also working on an internal Web IDE because my trial space is
confess. What did you do?
No, I didn't have time to tidy up my trial space. So that's my Cloud Foundry space, which is a shared one. So around about 350 people are running in this space. So every night everything is cleaned up. Because of that, I wanted to start everything from scratch. So I deploy my database files. They're still the same generated files, so I don't have to do anything else than just deploy my database module.
Okay.
Yep, starting. And in the meantime, why don't we have a look at the Cloud Cockpit? Good advice from somebody, and I can't remember who actually was it last time, that we could have a look at what's happening in the cockpit, where our stuff get deployed to.
Yes.
So I have two global accounts. That's the one we wanted to show. There is exactly one space with around about 350 people, I already told you.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly that space.
That's a lot of quota. That's a lot of quota.
Yep. So in the cockpit, we have some applications. Hey, it's Friday morning. Not a lot of people are doing something here. And we have some services.
Mm-hmm.
And there should be
Bookmarks.
one. Let's check how far it is in the meantime. So build completed successfully. All right. And I assume there's a lot of stuff in here because it takes some time to refresh.
That's cool. That's cool.
In the meantime, to use the time, I would start my Java application here. And the cool thing why I love to use the Web IDE exactly at that stage, just trying some things with the APIs, etc., is that you don't have to set up your whole workspace in Eclipse, for example. It's pretty easy. We're starting a Tomcat without configuring anything. It's just template creation up here, and you can get started within a few seconds. And it's always, not a mess, but a huge effort to get your Eclipse running in the beginning. So I thought it's a good idea for newcomers. Just ignore this one. I'll show you afterwards. It's a good idea to start with the Web IDE. I'm totally sure that this is not the final solution because there's still a lot of things missing, but it's a good way to start. So that's not what I wanted to see, to be honest. Why is there no HANA database? Well, just in order to go sure, it is one tenant database with this defx test. And usually here should be my HDI container. Give it a second. Yes, now there's something loading. And jumping back to my application is called Book Max. And the according HDI container is this one with a shared HANA database. And is already binded to an application, which is my Java application, which I recently deployed.
Actually, while we're waiting for that to refresh, Fabian has a question, which is, so the CDS build is local, question mark, as in, is the CDS build local to Web IDE? I guess the other part of that question is, or is the CDS build done on Cloud Foundry? So that's the first part of the question. And the second part of the question is, and then these artifacts are deployed to Cloud Foundry. Now, personally, to be honest, I've not thought about that. I'm not sure whether the CDS build is done locally in the Web IDE. I always was under the impression, because I've not used the Web IDE too much in this space, because I've been using, of course, VS Code and Vim, whether it is local. But I'm not sure whether the actual CDS build, for example, the compile, is done as part of the Web IDE, or it's done in Cloud Foundry. I would suspect the latter, because what does Web IDE have in terms of an execution space? But I don't know, actually.
Yeah, me neither, to be honest.
That's okay. We can find out, though. Good question, Fabian. I'm pretty sure I remember looking at logs in the Web IDE that suggested that the build was being done in a container on Cloud Foundry, but I could be wrong. I might be misremembering. So Fred is saying, I always thought CDS build equals Web IDE version of CDS compile. Yes, exactly. It is the CDS. It's the Web IDE version of CDS compile, because I think the names are slightly, unfortunately, written on the menu. But where that actually happens is what I'm wondering about. But we can find out. Max and I can find out.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yes, exactly. The build default. Fred is saying the build defaults to HANA. Yes, defaulting --to HANA. Yes, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's no other option right now in the Web IDE. So what have we done? We've deployed my HDI container, my application, and Web IDE immediately know that this application refers to HDI container and binds the according service.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully this forward or redirect is working.
Yeah, that should take us to the application,
Yeah.
shouldn't it? Yeah, there we go.
Exactly. Well, there's a lot of things around here. You can have a look at the user provided variables where there shouldn't be a lot. There's some kind of Java debug, which will be interesting later. A log level, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, wondered about why my logs didn't get dumped to the console. So there's at least a warning, which will be yeah, written to the console, and a lot of other things, etc., etc. Some environment variables. I think that is something which might be interesting at a certain point in time, but not probably now. Exactly the same could be done.
Ooh, that's small.
Give me seconds.
Hint,
Better
hint.
now?
Can't see any font now, but start typing, we'll probably see it. Oh, there we go. Yes, there it is. Oh, it's hidden from the Slack notification that you're the current speaker. So let me just move that across to the other side. Right, all good.
Unfortunately, I can't show that because there's some issues with my firewall and the proxy connected to the SAP corporate Wi-Fi, where are some issues. But what I wanted to say is that you could definitely do exactly the same by the command line interface. So the cockpit is just using the command line interface in the background, and yeah, provide some fancy UI on the top.
Yes.
Okay. So what do we have? We have those two things deployed. As a little warm up, I want to show you how to debug a few things in order to
Awesome.
yeah, probably solve some issues we have. So we have exactly one method right now, which is the before read for orders. So every time we read a certain order, this hook will be yeah, will get effective. And as you know, it's exactly the same as in some other tools. Simple click in on the side will activate a breakpoint. Before we do that, let's check if the application is running in general. That looks good because
nice.
there's still one error which I face every time. That's exactly that one, I guess. Service. Right, we get some data. We have deployed to the HANA database via CSV files. So my service is running, everything is fine. The HANA database connection is also working. Then we will go further to debug. So debug needs a little bit of configuration. So usually we run Java applications, so we are not able to debug anything. There's some run configuration. It's just like the option in Eclipse. And as you can see, there is a usual configuration by default. It doesn't run in debug mode. It doesn't open any additional windows. So we create a new one, which is debug Java application, and activate the run debug mode. I don't want to open a new window because that's a little bit tricky. Don't want to talk too much about that. That function isn't really working good right now. Save and run, and we are almost done. The first time the application is starting does take some time, but we already started it, so
that's okay.
More or less just a few seconds.
Just while we're waiting, I do like the sort of completely unstyled Times New Roman OData service URL in the browser. It just really appeals to me, as opposed to the welcome to CDS.services, which you get from the Node.js based engine, which is sort of styled deliberately. Obviously, they've chosen some CSS, but I'm just wondering about the choice of font. At least it's not Comic Sans, I suppose. But everything's awesome.
I'll give it a few further seconds.
Yes, in fact, talking of Comic Sans, I was also discussing with somebody yesterday on Twitter about email signatures and images in email signatures and how awful they are. I'm not sure about anybody here. Let us know what you think on the chat, on the Twitch chat, about email signatures. Do you have an email signature? If so, do you have any images in there? And if so, why are you not ashamed of that? But no, just kidding. So I'm not a fan of email signatures at all, especially not with images. But anyway, let me know what you think. A bit of controversy there.
All right. Good job, DJ. There were some
filling in with rubbish.
So the debug is attached. There was a notification on the right hand side. I'm not sure if somebody can see that. Nope. So why don't we just go to the OData service and execute a read on the orders?
And this is a read, not a query, right? So this is going to be an individual order that we're going to be grabbing.
Exactly. So I'm reading a certain GUI here, and hopefully that's the OData service URL is fine.
So a single entity.
Yep. Ooh, and you get a notification that the debugger is suspended at a certain line of code. Everything's fine here, and we got the debugger view on the right-hand side, as hopefully everybody's able to see. And that's pretty cool for the beginning. So when I started with writing Java for a CAP, you're able to, the problem in the Web IDE is that you don't have the definition and declarations of some classes. So usually when you're in Eclipse, you do a right click or a F3 to go to the definition of the class, and you can see literally everything which is in. So in the Web IDE, from my point of view, or as far as I know, you don't have this option right now. So to dig into a few things, the debugger is a pretty cool solution. So we get a few objects where this is live, more or less method. This is the before read method. Actually, there's a helper with a few things, and yeah, I think that's something which everybody can do it on its own. There's a request with exactly which entity is requested with some keys, with the service name actually.
So what's the parent property that we're looking at here? These are children properties of what? If we go up, if we scroll up, the request. Yes, it's that the request.
Genau, auf Deutsch. Genau. Yeah, exactly. That's something we could do with the debugging mode. Not sure if we should spend more time on that. I think we have half an hour left. I think we are. I want to do some coding today because one method is, I guess, not enough. I think debugging is something everybody could do on his own. Writing some code, and I wanted to explain the equivalent of package JSON for Java at the end.
Oh, yes.
All right. So what I wanted to do is, well, I'm always struggling with writing in these methods on my own. I think we had it last session already. So the method body is kind of tricky. Which requests, which objects do I get for example, the after read? I don't really know, because I don't have this option in the Web IDE locally on my Eclipse. I probably have the option in order, or via having a look at the annotations file or the annotation. In Web IDE, we have the option to let those things generate by the Web IDE, for example. Just for those folks who haven't been here last time, there's the entity operation hooks, and we already have the orders hooks. So what I wanted to do is delete my class and let the whole class generate again.
Yep. These wizards are pretty nice, actually.
What was that?
These wizards are pretty nice.
They're helpful, yeah. Not really necessary when you're a Java pro, but for the beginning, definitely helpful. Entity operation hooks, so I can generate the class again. And we'll get a method body for all hooks which are available for orders. We will close the debugger view to have a little bit more space. All right, what I want to do is we want to access some data, for example, in our after read. There's still, or I still have no idea how to uncomment those things in a bulk. That's live. Those objects get highlighted because the according class is missing. We haven't imported any classes yet.
Ah, yes. Yes, because
And
you
there's
just generated this new, haven't you? Yeah.
yeah, there's the problems view on the bottom, and hopefully Web IDE is telling you what is wrong. So there are a lot of things which can't be resolved because the imports aren't done yet. And if I click on either, I could do it separately for every single type or class, but to do it in a bulk, I will organize the imports.
Nice.
And looks like that I've done something wrong because the color bracelets are missing. And hopefully the beautify is working this time. All right. So every time I read some orders, after the read on the database is executed, I will get a hook or a notification that my method here can be executed. Well, why don't we just manipulate something on the data? I think you've done more or less the same with Node.js, and I want to do more or less the same as you did in.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think we added some text or something to the value of an existing property as it went out.
Okay, so let's explore some objects here. The response accessor is more or less the object to go. So we have the response and can get the entity data, which is already read by our, what is it called? Is it the default handlers or the generic handlers?
Yeah, the built-ins, I guess.
Why don't we have a look at the documentation, how they're exactly called?
Documentation?
It's the generic operation.
Generic operation, yes.
Yeah, and we are exactly here right now. So the generic operation is already executed, and we are hooking up or hooking in here. So well, we got the entity data, and it's of type entity data. All right. A little bit tricky, to be honest, to manipulate the actual values. So it does take some time to get used to manipulating data. So it's taking the existing data, or the entity data here, as a template, more or less. And we add an element in terms of, well, you will see it in a second.
Yeah.
We will manipulate the amount, for example, or as always have, if you have a look at our OData service, a amount, and when we read it, we will override it with a certain constant here for every single. Our reader operation is only for one entity, so we will override exactly one entity amount value. And let's take it. What day is it today? It's 19th. So
19th.
So we have built a new entity data, which we need to access again.
I'm very surprised that you didn't pick the classic example number 4711, 4711, which I'd never heard. When I first started with SAP 30 odd years ago, I was thinking, what the heck is this number? Why have they picked this number in examples? But now I know. For those of you who don't know, obviously it's the house number of the company, the organization that markets Kölnisch Wasser, which is is it an aftershave? Echte Kölnisch Wasser, and it's in Cologne, and it's a very famous number, very famous address, 4711 some street. Anyway, that's the example number.
All right, so going back to my method, so there's still a mismatch. Let's go on and have a look at the available methods. Perfect. With all the object standard methods and some additional ones. So I want to do build my entity data. Where am I?
Gregor has posted a link to the wiki page for 4711. Thank you, Gregor.
And my orders entity is called orders, and hopefully everything is fine now. Yeah, exactly. And what I gotta do is do we have it here somewhere? Yeah, exactly. It's already here in my comment. So we are manipulating the response. That's the reason why we can't use the initial one, which was already here.
Okay.
We want to have a type read response. It's successful, and the data we want to have is the one I've recently built, and build a response out of that.
So what you're doing here then, just to make sure I understand, so in line 45, you're creating a new entity data instance based upon some information, or based upon the original one in ed, and you're creating a new one X.
Yeah, so what's happening is the order entity or the single entity we want to read will stay exactly the same, but the amount value will be changed from whatever it is to 0815. And it's a little bit more effort here because this entity data object can't be manipulated directly. You have to like build it up on a template with get builder, use the original one, and override with add element the already existing attribute value.
This pattern here of using a builder and adding sort of dot chaining functions here to that builder reminds me of the way that you build up queries in the S4 HANA Cloud SDK as well.
Yep,
and
exactly.
there's a name for that as well. Is it like a flow style or a, not conversational style, is it flow style or?
I can't remember the name.
Anyway, I'll think of it, or maybe somebody on the stream will remember what the name for that style of get builder, add this, do that, remove that, and then finish and go. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We've written the method. Just remember there is for this ID the amount is 0, and if we run our service again, where am I? When I stopped it before, that there is no overlap and my debug mode is not still active, and run it.
While we're waiting for that to start, Fabian asked, order record created by VCAP ? Technical user used to deploy the CDS artifacts ? Yeah, I think Fabian is probably referring to the entity when we looked at it in your third tab there. The created by or the modified by says VCAP, and that's the VCAP user, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit unlike JavaScript. Was it there unknown or
anonymous? I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
we haven't yet covered authorization and authentication, which we possibly will do if there's demand for it. I think there probably is demand for it. So yeah, if you want us to cover that sort of stuff, I would like to cover that because I don't know very much about it yet either. But I'm sure we can find somebody to tell us about it. Let us know. Fred says, isn't it called the builder pattern? I think, yeah, it is called the builder pattern as well, the general sort of builder pattern. But there's a word in my memory, something to do with flow or something that describes the conversation that you have this, then this, then this, then this. It's really doing my head in because I can't think of what it's called. Well, I'll remember right at the end, just as we go offline, I'll remember what it is, I bet. Okay, so Fred says, yes, please cover auth. Yes, okay, cool. That might not be in the next couple of episodes, but I need to dig around and find the right person to come and tell us about it, which is great because we get to talk to other people, not just listen to my boring voice.
Okay. Thanks for taking over. In the meantime, the application is started again, and I don't want to do a lot. I just want to refresh this page and request this entity again, and hopefully the amount is not 0 this time, but the amount I entered in my Java method. Cross fingers.
I was wondering whether that was going to happen because the 0815 is a string. I'm just wondering whether we need to change that to an integer.
Totally right.
But I didn't want to say anything because
yeah, you're totally right.
Java.
Then it's let's take this one.
Finally we get the proper example number.
And this time it take that much. Didn't stop the application, and it's more or less a hot deploy now. Yep. Application is starting. Give it a few more seconds. Application is running. All right. Here we go.
Excellent.
Fancy. All right. Well, what could we do else? Well, that's one thing. I mean, usually you want to access a database or something in your method, and not only the data which is applied via your objects within the method. So, for example, I can remember that you had kind of a where's my Wiz code? Implementation like that, right?
Yes, exactly. We added some text to the
And
title of the
validation
book.
if the orders are right, etc.
Yeah, yeah.
Why don't we build a equivalent in Java? I think we have 20 minutes left.
Yes, exactly. That would be perfect.
So, going
So
back
for
to
those
my
of
web
you
IDE.
on the stream who've not, were not on the episode, could you make that a little bit bigger, please,
Yep.
Max? For those of you who've not seen this before, this is basically checking to see whether there's enough stock. And also adding some text to a title. So the first one is before a creation of an order, and the second one is after the read of books.
Are you still there, DJ?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay. Okay. So, do you want to add something more, or do we
No,
just
that
go
was
over?
just to show people or explain to people what those two paragraphs or stanzas or sections were.
Okay. All right. So, usually we do the validation before we create something, right? So, where's my before create? W. I only want to have the and we again have the problem with some imports that sometimes cannot be resolved. We organize our imports, and all the errors are gone.
By the way, while we're doing that, Fabian asked about Java. Isn't Java a strongly typed language? With a smiley face, of course. And thank you, Gregor, for responding as well. This is great. We don't have all the answers anyway, but yes, obviously it's a strongly typed language. But the compiler can't recognize that because it may be, as Gregor points out, that there are multiple implementations of that particular method. Some with strings, some with integers, etc. Yeah.
Okay. So, how would you start? I want to access the entity data which is in the request. Going with the request. So we only have the create request without any response, unlike before with the extension helper, which we have a look at in a second. And I want to get data. So the first thing you did was checking if there is a order amount, right? Yeah. If there is anything, and if it's bigger than 0, right? Okay. So since it's not directly stored in a generic object or anything like that, because it's stored in a map in this order item object, it's get element value, and it's called amount right. Type mismatch, we need to cast it.
I love Java.
All right, and we check if the amount is null or if the amount, less than 0. If that's the case, we will return a error. An error here for the time being. We will certainly return more times a error response. That's the reason why I want to stick to the dry methods. Don't repeat yourself, if I'm right. So it's a private method only for this handler, which creates exactly this response for some errors in our method. For create a response.
I like the way that you controversially, deliberately maybe, put the opening curly brace on a separate line on line 98. See what people think about that.
Yeah, I think it's just JavaScript style. I'm not sure.
It's a style. It's certainly a style.
Okay, I don't want to stick to that. So the status code is the HTTP code, and the message I want to give back was the error down here. This method must return all the results. So we didn't return anything yet, and the create response does have something like a builder. Error response. There's again the possibility to create something like that. Get builder, and we have a status code in our method, which is just forwarded from here to here.
Yep, nice.
And following the builder pattern, we want to set a message, which is the message from my parameter. And we want to have a response, so create my response, please. That's just a warning because it isn't used yet. Let's try if it's working here. Return get error response. The method is already recognized. And when was it? What you returned 400 order at least.
Yeah. Sort of like a generic "it's your fault, dear client."
Right.
Yeah, that's a valid use of HTTP status code 400.
Yep, because that's an integer, not a string. All right. In the meantime, I would like to run this one to check if the implementation is working.
Nice. I know that all the way around. Oh, sorry. Carry on.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I was going to say while we're waiting for this thing to start again, I was going to say on my run, I'll be racking my brain trying to think of the name of this builder pattern. It's doing my head in.
My application is starting. In the meantime, since creating an order is done via post method, I want to do that via postman.
Not curl.
I'm sorry.
I'm only kidding. I said that before. Fred
via curl. So I have a few collections in place, and one I've stolen from you, which you already had for your Node.js application, and I want to reuse it exactly, which is a certain body. So I want to order a book ID with a certain amount. So I want to order exactly one book of ID 330. The header is application JSON for sure. The HTTP method is post, and we have to, I think that was one of my test cases, copy over
change the URL, yeah.
The URL. This one. It's still the same. And give me a second. I want to order 0 that we're facing an error.
Try the error case.
Oh, it's your fault. At least one book. Why don't we order 2 books? And we are getting back the generated ID of our order. Okay, that's part of the story. I think we have some more validations. So what is the other things here? Yeah, I want to update my stock, for example, because every time I order something, my stock is usually decreasing if it's a positive amount. I want to do that too. And as we are clean coded, validation of
So while you're typing that, Fred has put me out of my misery. I was thinking conversation flow, but it's fluent. Obviously, same root as the word flow, but fluent. Thank you, Fred. Fred, you're my personal Googler. Your my personal LMGTFY. Thank you very much. I was trying to slowly and quietly Google for it while Max was doing this, but I thought, no, I better not do that, just in case something on the screen by mistake.
Okay. Well, before we update the stock, I want to know if there's enough stock still there, yes. So my order could be done anyway. So what I want to do is to query my actual entity and check it in my method if there is red book, let's call it stock book. Give me a second. So we are now with the extension helper, and there is a, was it that one? Other methods do we have? Give me a second. I'm lost in my story.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's right. Get handler, which is data source handler now, not the extension helper, and I want to read on something. And I think it's exactly this one with a nice documentation from my point of view. So it's the entity name you want to read. We have a key value pair, which is more or less the select parameters, and the element names I want to have in my return to object.
Nice. Okay, that's the one. Yep.
That was a little bit too much.
While you're rearranging that a little bit, Fabian asks, is OData batch processing possible with CAP? Yes, it is. And in fact, with the Node.js flavor of CAP that we've been looking at in previous episodes, the only calls that have been made from front ends have been in the $batch call anyway. Because I think by default, OData v4 does everything in batch. I could be wrong, but I think that, yeah, that's the default with v4. These are great questions, by the way.
One second. So to read for my ID, which is where is my ID? Do we have it somewhere
it's going to be
already?
The incoming request, isn't it? Or in the order item.
Yeah, it's in the order item.
Value something.
And it's of type integer, I guess. It's an L1 name, and it's book ID. If I have a look at Postman, it's book ID, exactly.
Yes, because this is it's almost like the generated property name from the association that was written originally, isn't it?
Okay, and I want to have two return values. One is the ID and one is the amount or the stock. So usually a list is required here, and there is a short version of converting an array to a list. And it's exactly and stock, which is a little bit ugly because we don't use any constants for that. A little exception here. Why is that? data source exception. Let's handle that one.
Or is that...
No, my right click isn't working. Throws declaration. So this method is just not catching this exception, which is caused by this data source handler, because something could be wrong with our database connection, and this is just forwarding this exception. We will not handle this within this method. You could do that, but we will not do that at this point. So we read the books. We want to have exactly the book with this idea, and I want to have the ID and the stock. And and let's back the stock. We need to cast it again.
Okay, while you're entering that, Fabian asked another really good question, which Gregor has answered as well. But basically, oh yes, Fred's just saying about what I was about to say, which was we've got to remember. I think that I might have misunderstood the question, but the question was: is OData batch processing possible with CAP? Yes, it is. As I said before, so everything is a post method. Well, in that context, yes. And then Fabian asks, where do you implement the custom logic then? But we've got to remember there's a difference between the HTTP methods and the OData operations. So an HTTP method post, which is what's used for a dollar batch, because of course it could contain various bits and pieces. Inside there are various OData operations, and it's at the operation level that we implement the custom logic rather than at the HTTP level. They're very close together, the CRUD plus Q and the HTTP methods, but they're not the same, and deliberately not the same. And dollar batch is a good example of where actually you can see this sort of the relationship is not quite one-to-one. Yeah, so as Fred says, if I remember correctly, the batch post is a wrapper around several more detailed calls, could be get, etc. Exactly. So once the engine receives the post of dollar batch, it unpacks everything into the corresponding OData operations. There may be one, there may be more than one.
Oh, by the way, it's only 3 more minutes. Sorry for being a little bit nervous and confused, but I think we are getting to a point where we can return again an error that this is not right.
Perfect.
We have something in here that it's sold out. It's 409, right?
409, yeah, 409. Which is a nice HTTP status code. What's the I'm a teapot? Is that 418 or 419? I'm a teapot status code.
Well, it's a lie. There's not enough stock, but there's still some. But anyway, run it again. And in the meantime, let's have a look if we can find a book which we can order that there is not enough in stock anymore. So books. And so we want to... Where is my request? Let's close this one. I'm a little bit confused. So it's 310, right?
Yeah.
We have 241 in stock, and I want to order 250. If my application is running, or my application is running all right. Let's check it if everything is fine. Right, and order that one. I haven't updated the URL. Sorry for that.
That's okay. By the way, while you're doing that, the URL, the made up bit at the end, Fosoqua, reminds me of there's a new language that Microsoft brought out, which I'm sure Fred and other people will be interested in. Bosque, Bosque, which is really interesting looking. I might have to look into that later this week, this weekend.
Sorry. No.
There we go.
please check the logs for more details. Wow, that's a really good handover to have a look at the logs next time.
Perfect, yes. Oh my God.
Here's something with invalid column name, book idea. Nice. I
thought it was book ID.
Book ID. Well, let's have a look next time, or do we want to dive in now? It's called.
I think we rather than rush it, I think we should have a look next time. We don't want to encroach on people's time.
Yep.
So I think this is a great place to to finish. It is for many of us, not all of us, but for many of us, it's a holiday as well. So I guess people will want to be getting out and about as well. So do you want to de-share your screen and stick your handsome face back on the screen? And
my sweaty face.
Your sweaty face. That was fantastic. So that also means, I'm very happy about this, that also means that we're going to have you on again. So ha ha ha. But you didn't see that coming, did you? But no, that was super interesting. It was really nice to see how things are very similar between the two flavors of the CAP world, but also how different it feels using Java in the Web IDE and the helpers you have and everything. So yeah, let's debug that next time. Thanks Fred for the comment. That was a very useful episode. Thanks Max and DJ. Thank you Max for coming on, especially in that lovely shirt as well on your bank holiday Friday. We'll arrange for us to continue on another live stream, probably next Friday as well, to get this done. So it's still in our heads if Max is around, but we'll sort that out next week. So thank you all for watching, and thank you so much for joining on your holidays as well. And thanks for all the brilliant questions and answers in the chat. That really makes it. And we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.
Thanks everybody.